Thank you so much. You are too much, Lanice. I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, you all, I won't be before you long. Lanice just gave you a brief synopsis of what I am, and I'll explain a little bit more about my story down the line. So, what I want to start with is a question for you all. What's your favorite sign? A lot of times when I ask people that, they may think astrology. When we talking about Aquarius, Capricorns, Leos, and things of that nature. I also think about signs because signs are a part of what we do in everyday life. And for me, signs are very important because signs are part of our relationships. And the reason why I pick signs is because they speak to us without saying a lot, but they have a lot of power behind them. And I'll give you a few examples. When you think about a relationship, whether it be interpersonal, it doesn't have to be of violent nature. We can just talk about our girlfriends, our good buddies, or either, your guy friends, whatever have you. And we're sitting there and you're having a conversation. We know for a fact that sometimes relationships can be one-sided. And we see the signs, but because we love somebody, we tend to ignore them, which not is not all the time good. But at times when the signs come to us, what do we do with those signs? So I'm going to give you a few examples and we'll go from there. And then I'll talk about how all of this kind of wraps into what I do. Okay. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Anywho, here we go. Let's talk about a stop sign. Stop sign is an octagon. A stop sign can mean several things. And I'll give you examples. So let's just say we're driving. You're driving down the street. And I know I'm good for doing this. And I'm quite sure some of you all can kind of chuckle at yourself when I say this, but has anybody ever been accused by a police officer of doing what they call a Hollywood stop or a pause stop? It's basically that stop when you see the stop sign and you see that there's possibly no other traffic coming from either direction. So you kind of pat the brake, but you don't come to a complete stop and you roll through, or it's called a rolling stop for a reason. So how many times has somebody been pulled over for that reason and stopped by a cop? Well, the reason why they stopped you is a good reason. There's a stop sign there for a reason. It could be a 4-corner stop. It could be just a 2-corner stop, meaning that you and the person opposite of you have a stop sign. But the cross traffic does not have a stop sign, and that means that they'll get to go. If you're going through a rolling stop or a Hollywood stop and you're not paying attention, say you just look to the right and you don't look to the left, and you kind of roll through the stop, you can cause an accident, and you will be liable for the accident. So think about that when you're talking about relationships. How many times have we felt in our spirit, or we felt in our gut, or that something taps you on the shoulder and it says, hey, don't do that. Hey, stop. And we tend not to listen just because we feel like we know it, or we feel like we can make it through, or we're okay with what's going on. And then calamity happens. What do you do then? Now you're dealing with a circumstance that you could have avoided. Same thing in relationships. Let's talk about one-way signs. Anybody knows when you go down a one-way street, it's there for a reason. Either the street is too narrow, or it's just going with the flow of traffic. I'll use downtown Chicago because the Chicagoland area is my home base. So let's just talk about that. Downtown Chicago, because of the congestion, because of the way the buildings are made and constructed, those streets are one way for reasons. Because if you have two ways going down those streets, a lot of times the traffic will be so congested, it will be too tight for people to go this way and that way. So they make the flow of traffic go in one direction so you can have 2 lanes of traffic, but everybody's going the same way, and to avoid accidents. Say someone's not paying attention to the one-way sign and they think they could turn and they go down the one-way street. What could possibly happen? Another calamity. That means you can cause an accident. The one-way sign is there for a reason. Sometimes people tend to ignore it. Sometimes people just say, oh, I could get down halfway down the block because I'm only going to the alley. I know y'all have done it. I've done it. So if you're just going to the alley, you think you can make it. But what if somebody's coming out that alley that you're trying to make a quick turn into? Again, calamity. Signs are there for a reason. And what you choose to do with those signs could make, break, or determine where you're going in life. I'm going to use this last sign before I start closing up, and then I can explain to you about the book that Lanice so greatly gave you all, which is part of my quest in life to bring awareness to domestic violence. So the last sign I always talk about is dead end. And I'm going to pause for a minute. Dead end is just exactly that. Unless you live on that street or you have business on that street, you technically have no business going down that street. You can get caught at the end of a dead end street. You can get blocked in. You can't reverse. You can't turn around or whatever have you. And if there's something that is trying to get after you, maybe you're being chased. Maybe somebody else is chasing somebody else, and you get caught down here at this dead end street with nowhere to go. It could actually be the end of your existence. Harsh, but it's a reality. And I use that because so many times, and this is where I go into what I do, I'm a domestic violence advocate. I'm a 15-year survivor. I gave up 15 years of my life to someone who I thought loved me. And I promise you, it's not that much love on the earth anymore to make me want to be with someone that's abusive, whether it be physically, verbally, emotionally, financially, or spiritually. I realize that I have more worth than myself, and I'm valuable in the earth to allow anyone to abuse me in any shape, form, or fashion. And that's what I do to try to give women a voice. Those people who are scared, those people who want to come out of relationships feel like they can't. I go and I give you that time. So my book, Assassination Avoid Destiny Defined, is just that. I avoided assassination, and now my destiny is being defined. One of the things that's defining is this TED Talk you guys are listening to. And I'm so honored to be here. So thank you all. And hopefully you'll pay attention to your signs a little bit better. What's in your sign? Well, if I could chime in just quickly, I know it's my own TED Talk, but the reason why I chose signs again, because, you know, we look at signs in everyday life, and signs, I couldn't get into it because it was 5 minutes. Signs also are color structured for a reason. You know, red is a stop sign. It can mean danger, or it could also be passion, because red is the color of passion. So when you think about relationships, you think about stopping or danger or passion. You know, people lose their lives because of passion. You know, you've heard of, you know, if I can't have you, nobody else can, or a passionate interlude where people, a crime of passion, that's the word I'm looking for, excuse me, crime of passion and things of that nature. When you look at like railroad crossings and things of that nature, they're yellow, they're cautionous for a reason. So when I started doing all of that for my book, that was just one thing that God gave me that just really stood out to me, because any sign you could look up, I mean, God is in everything. We already know this. I could look outside right now and look at the dew on a tree. And if God really wants me to have a word, he'll give me a word about it. So he gave me a word about signs, and it's applicable in every area of your life. It doesn't have to be necessarily, like I said, interpersonal relationships. You got girlfriends that you've been holding on to for years because you felt like you need to just stay with them because they've been with you all your life. But sometimes that stuff has to be cut off because they can't go with you to your next. As much as you love them, as much as you want them to hang on, some people are there for a lifetime, but some people are there truly just for seasons.
That is wonderful. And so that answers one of the questions I was going to ask you. I like to ask 2 questions before we close out and go to the next talker. Okay. So kind of like why the message is important. You kind of shared a little bit about that. But I really want to know is why now? Why do you think sharing a message like this is so important during COVID, during everything that this even with the marches and everything that's just going on in the climate of our world? Why do you think your message is so important now?
My message has been important. It's important all the time. Why? Because DV has no race, creed, color, no gender. It's male, female oriented. It's age makes no difference of it, because children are abused, whereas elderly people are abused, especially during COVID-19, because domestic violence rates skyrocketed. Shelters have been filled to capacity. People don't have anywhere to go. And when you're quarantined with a person that's your abuser, that has to be the worst place that you could possibly be. So I'm not going to say that just during this season it's important. I will say that it's probably more important now than it has been in the past. But we have to remember, domestic violence is 365. Suicide prevention is 365. Nobody just says, okay, well, this is the month of March, and I'm not going to be there just because it's a month. Abusers are agitated by any little thing. And with COVID-19, I was a part of an ebook. And one of the things I said in the ebook, and it still resonates with me, and I profound on it. And, you know, sometimes when you're a writer, you forget when you write something down how good it is until somebody read it back to you, and it kind of blew me away. But she asked me how I felt about domestic violence and COVID-19. I said, if I was still in a domestic situation right now, the one I was years ago, and now that I'm older and I've come out and I've been on this side of abuse, If I was in a relationship now during COVID-19, I would take my chances with COVID-19.
Wow.
I would rather get sick and be put in a hospital, possibly put on a ventilator, because I will be away from my abuser. And because when you got to think about it, for me personally, when I thought about it, when COVID-19 happened, the peace that I got when I was away from my abuser, whether it be at work, whether I like my job or not, whether it was me driving in my car, getting to and from work, whether I went to go visit my parents, I was away from my abuser. When you're quarantined and you're not supposed to go around the elderly because you possibly give it to them, you can't go out in the street unless you're buying essentials. So I got to sit here and be in the house with you. You don't know if this person has lost their job because of COVID-19, they getting unemployment or not. And it just, an abuser who's a narcissist, they get agitated very easily, and they will take it upon themselves to blame you for COVID-19.
Yeah.
It's your fault that this disease happened. It's your fault I'm in this house, stuff like that. So for me, and just everything that I've been through, if I had hindsight is 2020, of course, it always is. But when I think about COVID-19 now, and I think about domestic abuse victims, I'm quite sure if you take a poll of victims, and ask them would they rather deal with the disease or deal with the abuser, I can almost guarantee you at least 7 out of 10 of them will probably say they would rather deal with the COVID as opposed to the abuse.
Wow, you guys, is this, these talks and these ideas that people are sharing, it's not just ideas, this is life-changing information. So I have shared Ms. Cooper's information. Make sure that you follow her on Facebook, connect with her. Maybe you know somebody, maybe you are that somebody in that situation, and you need to connect to somebody. You're in a situation, so yeah, we're having a TED Talk here, but we have a real conversation. So if you know somebody or you're that somebody, make sure that you connect to her.